everyone, John with KGTropicals again. We are on episode number 4 in our video series about breeding African cichlids. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about filtering these tanks. We've already talked about what are the best kind of fish to breed. I've given you my opinion on that. We've already talked about the tanks. I've given you my opinion on that. Now, I'm going to give you my opinion on filtration. I don't think really anybody will disagree with me on this one because it is pretty much no-brainer type stuff. When you're going to put your filters on your African cichlid tanks, whether you're breeding or whether you're just keeping them, the more the merrier. It's impossible to have too much filtration on your African cichlid tanks. What I recommend to everybody as a rule of thumb is filter double what your tank calls for. If you have a 55-gallon tank, get enough filtration for 110 gallons. If you have a 30-gallon tank, get enough for 60 gallons. It's going to make your life a little bit easier. It's going to keep your tank a little cleaner. These fish are big poopers. A lot of times you can watch them poop while they're eating. And they look like little kites flying because the poop will be hanging all the way down to the bottom of the tank. It's because they have such a rapid metabolism rate. They process this food so fast. That's why African cichlids always appear to be hungry. So they process things so fast, they poop it out so fast that they're huge waste producers. And so the more filtration you have, the better off you'll be. And also the more water changes you do, the better off you'll be. If you're not somebody who likes doing water changes, African cichlids aren't for you. That's what I would tell anyone. Now, is there a type of filter that I prefer one over the other? No. I have in this garage right now, I have 3 different brands, 3 different styles of hang on the back filters. I have 2 different style canister filters. I have 2 tanks that are on sump systems with overflows. I've got just about every kind of, and I've got sponge filters. I've got just about every kind of filtration there is in here. And if it's processing water, if it's mechanically and biologically filtering the water and treating the water, then it works. That's the way I look at it. I'm not partial to any particular brands or anything like that, but you know, if it works, then it works, period. If your water's clear, it's working. So if you use doubling the filtration as a rule of thumb, you can't go wrong in your breeder tank and in your grow out tanks. However, in your fry tanks, we're going to want to do things a little bit differently. We're going to want to use air to filter our fry tanks because it's simple. We don't want the fry getting sucked up into the filter tubes. It'll happen. They'll get sucked up into there. You won't know, and you'll never know until you go to clean out your filters. So maybe you're one of those people that cleans your filters out once a week. If so, good for you. Bravo. But me in here, I can't do that. But it would be a long time before I would find those fish in here. So what do we do instead? We use air, and we hook air to a sponge filter. If you haven't seen sponge filters, look them up. They're extremely efficient. They are dirt cheap. And hey, they're not going to kill your fry. We use sponge filters in most of the tanks in here. We've got 120 tanks in here, and almost all of them are hooked up to sponge filters. Very efficient. They work, period. And they're not going to suck your fry up into them. So we want to be delicate with the fry. We don't want an over-the-top current in the tank, and we don't want to get them sucked up into a filter tube. So double filtration for your breeder tank and your grow out tanks, your larger tanks. Sponge filter filtration for your fry tanks. And you can hook sponge filters up to just small air pumps, by the way. You don't need some big elaborate air system like we have in here. Now, let's talk about water parameters for a little bit. Water parameters in African cichlid keeping is one of the most challenging parts of this whole thing. Because like we talked about earlier, these guys are big poopers. So they're constantly messing up the water. So we've constantly got to be maintaining the water. We can do that through filtration, that'll help. But we also, to keep the parameters where we want them to be, we have to do a lot of water changes. It's part of the hobby. If you don't like doing water changes, get out now. Because you've got to do them when it comes to African cichlids. We want to keep the water pristine for our Africans, right? Because they're going to grow the fastest, they're going to show the best color, they're going to be the most active, and they're going to all around just be a more enjoyable experience for you, whether you're growing fry or you're just keeping them. We want to keep the water parameters spot on. What are those parameters? We come out of the tap here at 7.8 pH. We're lucky. It's pretty close to perfect for African cichlids. I'm not going to get into all of this buffers and all of this junk that a lot of people use. We have a pH of 7.8 out of the tap. Our fish are perfectly healthy. I have never had a fish affected by pH. Now, some people are on well water that have an abnormally high pH or an abnormally low. It depends on where you're at. And so you will have to do some adjusting at that point if that's the situation that you're in. And you Google adjusting pH in aquariums. I'm not going to spend an hour talking about that. There's a lot of ways to do it naturally without using the powders and all of that kind of stuff that you would put in your tank. Using different substrates, driftwoods, things like that, you can adjust the pH in your tank where it's a constant adjustment to the pH to keep it at the levels that the African cichlids like. 7.8 and a little higher is ideal. Again, I'm just giving you my opinion of what my experience has been. And so if you can hover around that 7.8 range, maybe a little higher, a fraction lower, you'll be okay. Temperature. Temperature is another key thing, especially when you're talking about breeding. Temperature will greatly affect these fish. Absolutely ideal temperature. These are tropical fish, 80 degrees. 80 degrees, you're perfect. Now, we keep our garage here heated to about 78, which keeps the tanks at 78. And they do well at that. But the rule of thumb, again, is over 78 degrees, they're going to have a higher immune system. They're going to grow faster. They're going to have, their metabolism rate is going to go higher. They're going to process food faster, hence grow faster. They're going to breed better if you have a higher temperature. And all in all, their general health. They'll be more active, they'll be happier, they'll be more colorful. Everything's better when the temperature's higher. If your temperature is below 78, and I mean, okay, 76, 77, you're probably going to be okay. Probably won't breed very well for you. But if you're below that, if you're at 75, 74, 73, they're not going to die. But they're not going to be happy, and they're not going to be healthy. Everything slows down when the temperature is colder on these fish. They're just like human beings. When the temperature goes down, their metabolism slows down, which means their rate of growth is going to slow down. Their immune system is going to slow down, which means they're going to be more susceptible to disease, parasites, ick, all of those things. And they're going to grow slower. It's like everything just kind of slows down when you're at the low temperatures. So keep them at 78 or higher. Everything is better for these fish when you keep them warm. Don't boil them. I'm not sitting here telling you if you go up to 90 degrees, they're going to be the best fish in the world. No, no, no. Let's not get crazy here. But if you keep the temperature at 82, your electric bill might be a little bit higher, but everything's going to be faster. They're going to breed more, they're going to be more colorful, more active, they're going to be healthier, their metabolism's going to be up, their immune system's going to be up. Everything's perfect when the temperature's a little bit higher. Now, as far as other parameters go for the water, I'm not going to talk about them. If you don't know where your ammonia, your nitrite, and your nitrate levels should be, you might not want to be thinking about breeding African cichlids. All right, I'll tell you, it's 0, folks. You don't want that in your tank. It's the enemy. All of those things. So, those need to be at 0. So I'm not even going to talk about them. You've got to get your tank free of those 3 things before you start wanting to think about breeding and all of those. Now, okay, I know. At the end of the week, your nitrates are going to be up a little bit because you haven't done your water change yet. That's not the end of the world. But your nitrite and your ammonia have to be gone if you want these fish to be healthy, whether you're breeding or you're just keeping African cichlids. So, quick recap. double filter your tanks, your breeder and your grow out tanks. Let's use some sponge filters for our fry tanks. Let's keep our pH at 7.8, 8.0, somewhere in that neighborhood. Let's keep our temperature up, 80, 82, absolutely perfect. Everything's better when the temperature's higher. And let's keep ammonia, nitrate, and nitrite gone. We don't want it, it's gone. So follow those rules. Once you get your tanks set up, and you're gonna be ready to breed. And so that's what we're gonna talk about on the next episode. We're gonna talk about getting the whole thing started. This is where the fun begins. Now, all the boring stuff, setting up the tank and all of that crap, it's all done. Now it's time to start getting the action to happen. And so we're gonna talk about all the different ways that we can do that. And this is where the fun begins. So don't forget, subscribe to the channel. Comment, I'm all backwards here. Comment down below and let me know if you disagree or if you agree. The water parameter stuff is probably gonna get some discussion started. Let me know what you think. Come on, you know the drill. Follow us on Twitter at KGTropicals. Go to the Facebook page and like us for us, please. Go to the website, buy up all of our fish. We'll send them right out to you. And we will see you on the next video.